Dear Colin, what'd you make of basketballer JJ Redick telling radio host Chris Russo that he's outdated to say players should keep quiet and play? All right, I don't know Chris Russo, but I've heard him on radio and did for years when I lived in Connecticut. He was a big New York radio personality. There's two types of sports radio hosts. Old school guys, that's Russo, and new school guys. New school guys, I would qualify for that. I tend to focus on where things are headed instead of where they've been. I talk soccer and UFC and a lot of basketball, pro basketball, NFL, and gambling. That's what young consumers like. Russo tends to be old school. He takes calls. He loves talking about baseball like it's the 60s. Dead people, authors, and there's certainly an audience for that. But that kind of host, and I've noticed this for years, tends to have disdain for the current NBA and often modern athletes. I don't know why. I think we've had social changes and athletes have a bigger say and more personality. I do think if you gave Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe Instagram in the 70s, they'd be outspoken too. But there are broadcasters in my profession that tend to lean into the past. They cling to it. They like it. They're comfortable in it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Russo's a good guy, I've been told, but he's an old school broadcaster. They often talk about the good old days of the NBA. Like the Knicks and the Pacers free throw shooting contests were fascinating. NBA players today are overwhelmingly more skilled, stronger, better ball handlers, better shooters. I like today's NBA, and Draymond Green is a big part of that. Wildly respected by players in the association, JJ Redick rightly defended him. And let me say this about JJ Redick. I've been told he's not a fan of mine. That's fine. He doesn't have to be. He's a hell of a broadcaster. Redick does something that very few ESPN hosts are willing to do. Be confrontational. Go after people if he disagrees. He's smart. He does his homework, super knowledgeable. And I like his ability to disagree with a smile, be able to land a punch and take one. Whether he likes me or not, JJ Redick is a hell of a broadcaster. This draft was interesting. I always felt they were a little odd and insular. But they had Kayvon Thibodeau as their best player in the draft. That is fine. Jerry showed his draft card. But I thought that move was kind of desperate and weird. And one of the things I've always respected about New York media, LA media, and Dallas media, and Chicago, big city media, you're willing to hammer on local teams and local personalities. Dale Hansen was known for that for years. Is that I heard multiple clips from Dallas media, Matt, hammering that first pick. So take me to the ground floor of this thing. It looked weird. They were the most penalized offensive line. They drafted the most penalized offensive lineman. It felt like from an outside perspective, they got kicked in the butt a little bit by the locals.
Yeah, I think that did happen. And what's happened in the local media, and it happened in those other places you mentioned too, is, and it's a little ridiculous, we now have these armchair scouts, and they watch tons of film. And I mean, I think you and I have the same thought. It's like, have, Cosell or have somebody sort of do that for you. Let's not try to pretend that we know all this. What's happened, at least in Dallas, and maybe some other cities too, I'm sure it's happening everywhere, is that everybody's become an expert. And interestingly, with this player, suddenly all these people that watch all this film and sort of claim now to be amateur scouts had this guy with like a third round grade. And what happens is the listeners and everybody sort of buy into that. Oh my gosh, this guy I listen to all the time, or listen to his podcast or read, had him as a third round grade. The one thing I'll say on the Cowboys' behalf, I mean, it is kind of funny. I'm willing to beat up Jerry for a lot of things. But we sort of like give Belichick, and a lot of it's because of what he's done. We always give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like, well, yeah, he picked that guy 2 rounds earlier than everybody thought, or he picked this guy way earlier. I mean, the first 2 picks for the Patriots came about 2 rounds earlier than everybody thought. But Belichick sort of, But one of those was a Baylor guy, my alma mater. Number 50 in the draft was Tyquan Thornton. But it's fascinating. But when the Cowboys, of course, have conviction about a player. Now, here's what I've gathered, though, from talking to other things that at least a little bit push back against everybody hammering on this pick. The Cowboys were not alone. And maybe the Cowboys were not alone in overvaluing this guy. But sometimes I go around the league and talk to some scouts and everything, and they'll immediately make fun of the Cowboys. This guy's an injury. And it's funny how much these guys know. Some of these scouts, they'll go, years ago, Cowboys took a 3rd-round pick. It was their first pick of the draft. It was a guy named Brewster from Ball State. Some guy said he'll get hurt immediately. And I said, well, he never missed a game in college. What do you mean? This guy's an offensive tackle. He's never missed a game. He'll get hurt immediately. And he went in the weight room and popped a pec. And he never played a down for the Cowboys. He was their 1st-round pick that year. It's remarkable, the medicals they know and what they figure out. What the Cowboys have decided, and I sort of halfway applaud them for this. They think this is Tyron Smith's replacement and that he could be a great tackle, even though he's not a great replacement at left guard right now, which is what they need. They need somebody to replace Connor Williams, and they're getting a guy that is heavily penalized like Connor Williams. But their vision of this guy is a longtime left tackle who has rare trait, for his size, can do things in bending and getting in pass blocking, can do remarkable things. They think that's what he's going to become. So they're basically saying, we'll bite the bullet for a year or two because we think this guy could be a great left tackle.
What I do is take your free agent signings of note and combine it with your top 2 or 3 picks. And when I do that, there is no question the Denver Broncos are the most improved football team from the Super Bowl until you're watching this podcast. Not just Russell Wilson. So Drew Lock to Russell Wilson feels like an upgrade. They then add Randy Gregory from the Cowboys, a very good pass rusher, and DJ Jones, a wildly underrated run stopper defensive line from San Francisco. They then draft Nick Bonito, an edge rusher from Oklahoma, wildly athletic. I'm not done. They then take out Vic Fangio, a 70-year-old defensive coach, and replace him with Nathaniel Hackett, a young, progressive offensive coach. So they've switched the coach to the right side of the ball. They bring in a Hall of Fame level quarterback to replace Drew Lock. They already had the receivers and targets in place. They massively upgrade their pass rush and defensive line. So now I've got the 3 things, make it 4, that are the key to the Rams' success. Offensive coach, star quarterback, plenty of weapons, and a great pass rush. Oh, by the way, Rams have Jalen Ramsey at corner, and the Broncos, Patrick Surtain may have been one of the top 2 or 3 draft picks last year from Bama. He's a great corner for Denver. They are, to me, in the top 3 teams that should be Super Bowl favorites. You look at what won for the Rams, you look at what won for the Buccaneers the year before, and you look at what Denver has. The star quarterback, lots of weapons, really good pass rush, and an offensive-minded coach, from Arians, McVay, Nathaniel Hackett, from Brady to Stafford to Russell Wilson. So that's what comprises, to me, the Monday after the draft. Your free agent signings, a coach upgrade or 2, and your top 2 or 3 draft picks. I thought the Denver Broncos hit it absolutely out of the park over the last couple of months.